Good evening. How everyone doing today? God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma J, the creator of the world, and I'm here to give you a little short news on today. What brought my attention? Um, a accelerator. I do understand. Okay, so we're gonna talk about this cruise. The cruise was in Miami. They had to settle because there was quarantine on the ship because they had corona. There was an outbreak aboard the ship. But I understand that CDC already have guidelines in place for them. I understand that it was stated that all travelers that was unvaccinated, they all had took the test. So all of them had took the test. But I don't know if everyone had a mask on. So I don't know about that part there, but I know everyone, they said everyone was vaccinated for the test. All of them had took the test. So I understand we all go on a cruise. We all go on a cruise for vacation. Sometimes we go there to relax, to enjoy ourselves. But now, the world has changed. We have the COVID, and it's not gone away yet completely. It'll die down, but it hasn't gone away. So we all have to still wear a mask. We all have to still wear a mask. And I know we want to feel like the world is back to normal. We go to cruise, we go to enjoy ourselves. But things hadn't changed since then. But we want it to be normal. So I have a few little things here for traveling cruise, buses, and trains. You know, so first I have the guideline request for the cruise. Since this occurred and brought to my attention, I request that all all be tested for the corona before they get on a cruise. I understand all of them was tested, but we be saying for the second time around, you're gonna have a new group of people. So everyone needs to be tested for the corona, and also you have to carry your card. So you can't say you was tested and we don't see no proof that you was tested, and then you have everything coming out. So everyone, I advise everyone to start carrying the COVID card. The COVID card. So when you tell someone you've been tested already and you show your card, you straight. But you have to realize, without the mask, because you took the test, you can still catch the corona. So the mask prevents some of the virus, some of you catching the virus. You know, so the buses and the trains should always still wear the mask. You don't have time to keep asking them to show their card or asking if they took the test when they're getting on the bus or the train. But they do have to enter the bus and the train with a mask on. Okay, so but the cruise, if you book a cruise ahead of time, so you have time to take the test. So that means when you take your cruise, and you already should have your card in your hand before you get on the cruise, and also have a mask on. So that was for the buses and the cruise. Now, before enter the cruise, what I just say, wear the mask, and you already book a cruise weeks and months ahead of time. Just you have plenty of time to take the test. So and also since this occurred, even if you took the test, you can still catch the COVID. So when you enter the cruise ship, you need to get your temperature checked, and you should have your mask on at all time. Because you have to remember they have hundreds of people on that cruise. You're still around among a lot of people. Because the COVID is not over with. It died down, but it's still not over. Look what just happened just now. So we have to be cautious of this virus is still lingering around. You know, so um, So the crews, to make sure everyone met the crews, the bus and the train. Make sure you wear the mask. Now you don't have time for the bus and the train to be asking for their card and all that stuff, but make sure they have their mask on. Okay, so I need everyone to carry their card, their COVID card, especially since this occur. The cruise, especially the cruise, especially any other place that may ask to see it. That's why I say just carry you with you. Now some of them have it on their phone. Carry with you, or you have it on your phone. That's fine. Not only just the cruise, or anybody else might ask for it. Just make sure you have it. So it will be convenient for you, and the mask will also help prevent some of the virus. Because if they would have had some people had the virus, a lot of them wouldn't have not caught it. So you have to realize just because you test it, it don't prevent you from not getting a COVID. It prevents you from not having a serious reaction when you get the COVID. So you have to still wear your mask on these cruises. So that's all the short news I have for you on today. But I do have a word. I have a God word for you all today. Okay. And so this topic gonna be the Tower of Babel. This tower. They want to build it all the way to heaven. Now who does that? But these people here do. So this story come after the flood. You remember God had Noah to build the ark because he was going to destroy the whole nation. So this was after the flood. So God told him, told Noah and his sons to go ahead on and scatter and multiply, produce other people. All over the earth. You know, but instead of them gone all over the earth like God told them to, these men had settled in Sinai. They settled there. They weren't supposed to settle. They were supposed to scatter to produce the world, the earth. Because remember God destroyed the whole earth. So they were supposed to produce and bring more people to the earth, but they settled in one spot, Shinar. And instead of them doing what God told them to do, they want to come up with a solution. Now these men, they came together and they said they wanted to build themselves a city with a tower that reaches to heaven. They wanted to make a name for themselves. Now, see, these people here were so ignorant and they were so rude. They didn't feel like they didn't want to listen to God. They want to be God. They want to be on the same level with God. So they want to build a tower all the way to heaven, to make a name for themselves. And they also wanted everybody to bow down to them and turn the people away from God, because they wanted to be God. They wanted to be on the same level with God. They want to build a name in a tower, a city for themselves, but they don't have a one God, and so they could not be on the same level. So they wanted to have their own place in heaven and turn the people away from God. So they wanted to have a great city, and they wanted to be glory as a glory. God's the only one that get glory, but they want to have so much glory. They wanted to shine like God do. So they wanted to shine, and they wanted to build this tall tower to reach to heaven, but without asking God permission. They didn't ask God could they do that. You know, they did not ask God. They just started doing it on their own. Now these were some rude people. They didn't ask God. They wanted to do this on their own. So that what made God mad and angry because they didn't get no permission from him. I mean, you cannot build a tower all the way tall. What they wanted to see, people walking around in heaven. They wanted to just reach and walk around up there. You cannot enter heaven until you depart. So by God got angry, he saw that the tall tower that had ultimate reach in heaven. So God got angry. So what God did, and I had forgot to tell you, like after the flood, he had everyone on one language. Everybody had the same language. So then here, God was so angry, God gave them mixed language. So the workers that were doing the tower couldn't understand each other. That's how God do. God will make your enemies be among their own self, fighting against their own self. Now the workers, they couldn't understand each other because God had them on mixed languages, and they just talking Spanish, talking all kind of languages, and they couldn't even understand each other to even finish the tower. And that was God's whole plan. He wanted to stop them from doing the tower, you know. But they didn't stop them. They kept on still working on the tower. But we're gonna see down the line how God gonna hit the tower and destroy it. So God get them all mixed languages. So they wanted to be able to come. So they won't be able to communicate with each other. So they want to be able to finish the tower. So God struck the tower. See, they didn't want to stop. They're still trying to figure out how they could still fix the tower. So God struck the tower. God struck the tower. And God had them in confusion and mixture. So Babel mean confusion. Because see, when they first started building the tower, they had their own name. They had Shinar, the Tower of Shinar. But see, when God put that mixed language into their mouth, had them all confused. They didn't know what they was doing. And that was the whole plan to stop them. So God had struck the tower and confused them, and so that's why God renamed the Tower of Babel. You know, they mean confusion. So God told them to go and multiply and produce people all over the earth, but they settle and shall not. So God been told them to go multiply. God didn't tell them to settle and be building stuff. They were supposed to each town, each city they go to, they were supposed to produce people. To build the earth, to build the world back up. You know, so the Tower of Babel was all about convenience for themselves. And not obedience to the will of God. They didn't want to obey God. They didn't want to listen to God. They wanted to do things their way. They didn't even get permission from God to even build that tower all the way to heaven. So these people was doing what seemed best for themselves and not what God had commanded them. God had commanded them to scatter all over the earth, not settle and set now and start building a tower. So God told them to scatter and produce all over the earth. But they wanted to make a name for themselves and not consult with God, but create a tower to reach heaven. Now, they symbolize the pride and ignorance, and that's what I said earlier. They had pride, and there was just so much ignorance. A human who was trying to be equal with God, and that's what I said earlier. They were trying to be equal with God. They were like, who is him to tell us to go do this and do that? They was in the group talking. They're like, well, we don't need nobody to tell us to go scatter all over. We not going to scatter. See, they didn't want to scatter all over. They wanted to stay among themselves. They didn't want to lose each other. So they came up with a plan. No, we're going to settle right here. We're going to build our own tower. And we're going to make a name for ourselves. And we're going to be powerful just like him. So they wanted to be equal with God. So they symbolized pride and ignorance, a human that was trying to be equal with God and seeking to be free from Saturn. And see, that's what it was. They didn't want to go, they didn't scatter. They didn't want to go scatter all over. They was all family, came off this ship. They just come from the flood. So they were trying to stay among themselves. So they didn't want to go scatter all over the earth. So they didn't want to scatter all over the earth. But instead they wanted to reach heaven on their terms. Not God's terms, on their terms. They also wanted to turn to people away from God because they was making a name for themselves to be powerful, to be a God. So they were telling the people they God. They were trying to be powerful. They were trying to make a name for themselves. They didn't want to listen to God. They were like, who is him to tell us to go scatter the Lord world? We don't want to scatter. And that was the whole thing. They did not want to scatter all over the earth. They want to do what they want to do. They didn't want nobody to tell them that. So God disrupted the language of the worker that they could not longer understand one another. And that's how God do. When you disobey, they disobey. When you disobey, God disrupt your language. You will be speaking in tongues. You won't even know what you're saying. So they didn't know what they would say. Now, since all these people were disobedient to God and wanted to serve other gods, the Lord scattered them all over the face of the earth. Now they had to go walk for themselves. God used His power and shipped them all over the earth. Now you didn't want to do what I said the first time, but this time I'm scattering you all over. So He scattered them all over the earth because they disobeyed Him. They disobeyed Him. So now we see you cannot be a tower or anything that will reach heaven. God took all of them away and called Abraham. Now see, they didn't want to do right. They didn't do right. See, Abraham was living somewhere else. So God had to call Abraham to come in, for God, for to use Abraham to do what God wanted them to do. So God took all them out and scattered them all over the earth and called Abraham to come in. And that's how Abraham got settled at Shinar, right there. And God had told him, I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will bless your family. But he said, God, I don't have no children. And that's what I was preaching y'all yesterday. Abraham had to wait a long time for God to give him a child. For God finally gave him a child. And God saw that how he trusts God. And God trusts Abraham. So he called Abraham. He called Abraham, and he will make it. Told Abraham, I'm gonna make a promise to you that I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and your family. He was gonna have Abraham to do what he had what they were supposed to do. So I'm gonna read here. We see a play on words here. So why the Hebrew word Beran sound like the Hebrew word Beran? Now, which is also found in this verse, it means confusion or mixing. A word Beran itself is Hebrew for Babylon. So Babylon understood the word Babylon to mean the gate of God. But some soldiers believed, based on the history of the area in which the tower was erected, that the builder of the multiple tiered structure was interested in crowning the infants with a string to pattern God. They were making their own God. They were making their own God too, So that will help to explain why the one true God is so offensive by to playing. Because see, they also, God don't like for you to have other gods. He don't like for you to have gold image or none of that stuff. And see, that's what they also were doing too. So that also will make God very angry too. Because everybody will wonder why he got so angry on the tower. So they were only just building the tower. They also was doing other gods, images of other gods. So explain why one true God is so offensive by the claim, now which goes way beyond their profession purpose of attending renown of instead is they fought their way affected for God other than the true God. Now they want to do their way besides God way. So the true God required no tower, no inner structure to come near his people. Now the only thing he asks is a desire on a part to be close to him. So God wants you to be close to him. He don't want you to build a tower up to heaven to try to be close to him. That's not the kind of closeness he was talking about. When he said get close to him, he's talking about in prayer and reading his word. That's how you get close to God. Not build a tower all the way to heaven to try to get close to God or even try to be equal with God. You cannot do that. You know, so one I have, we can never build anything that reach heaven. You know, we get close to God by praying and reading God's word. That's how we get close and connected with God. We don't have to reach something so high to try to seek God or try to get close to God in that way. Too, we can never be equal to God. God create God created this whole world, and God got power. So we can never feel like we is equal in level to God. He the only one and true mighty God. So we can never be on the same level. They didn't want God to tell them nothing. They had pride and they were just so ignorant. They wanted to do things their way and their way only. They said, who's going to tell us to go to the earth and scatter? We don't want to go to the earth and scatter. So they came up with a solution that we gonna be a name for ourselves. We gonna be powerful. We gonna have people to worship them. They didn't want nobody to worship God. They want to be equal with God and have people to worship them. They want to have the kind of power that God has. They want to run a corporation up there close to heaven. I don't understand how you do that. So through our have, we can see heaven. We cannot see heaven until we depart. Now God told them to scatter, but they chose to be a tower. They chose to settle when God told them to scatter. They wanted to be God. They wanted to be God and straight, and they wanted to try to make the people straight the people away from God. So you can't decide that you want to not do what he said do and can do things on your own time. First they didn't get permission from God to build a tower that high. And second, God saw that there was worshiping other images of God. And that's the first thing that he don't like for you to do. He got on Israel like many times of them worshiping images of God. He don't want you doing that. So and when I first read the story, that's the first thing I say. Well, why he got so angry, and that's what the book and everything was saying. Why he got so angry, So that's when they pull up that there was worshiping other gods besides just building the tower, And then again, they did not get permission from God to do that. So these people here were just besides themselves. They were doing things to make themselves seem bigger. So they were just being ignorant, and they had so much pride. They had so much pride. This was right after the flood with Noah. He told God destroyed the whole earth. So he told them, "You go." But he didn't destroy the whole earth because Abraham was still that when he had to call Abraham to come and take their place because they didn't do exactly what God had told them to do. So God called Abraham there and started a new chapter. So I just want to say, if you want to get close to God, don't be like these people here. To get close to God is through prayer and through meditation of God's word. You know, we don't need to have that kind of power that we want to be equal with God. These people wanted so much power. They wanted the power that God had. They wanted the understanding and the knowledge that God had. But God created this whole world, and we can't be exactly how He is. He's the powerful God that created everything. So they didn't want to scatter. So at the end, God scattered them Himself. He scattered them all over. Now you go get it right the second time. And that's what He called Abraham to come finish the project that God had told them to do. you know. And so I hope y'all have a nice day. And remember, the way to get close to God is through prayer and meditating on His word. And we can never get besides ourselves that we're going to have the same power that God have and be on the equal same level with God. We can never be on the same level with God. These men here were so rude and so ignorant. They want us to be on the same level with God, and we can never be on the same level with God. We cannot worship other gods, and we cannot stray other people away from God. We preachers and we anointed, we chosen. We supposed to talk and teach anyone the word of God. But the way we teach it to people, we cannot teach them the way to stray them away from God. We can never stray nobody away from God. We supposed to we supposed to preach that word to everyone. So we're not gonna be like these people here. We're gonna do the will what God asks us to do, and we can never be on the same level. So I hope y'all have a beautiful evening, and I see y'all on the next video.